Today on Core Conversations, we had a special time on the Gratz Pilates page. We are broadening the conversation and reaching out to the African American community by hosting our site and our conversation on a page by this Pilates manufacturer. Joshua Keith is my guest, and he was so instrumental in making this happen. And I just want to highlight who he is. He's a professional dancer. He found Pilates as something that helped to keep him stronger and to aid him with his herniated disc in his back. He's always had a sports background, and we even joked about how good of a t-ball player he was back in the day. Pilates is for everybody. So Gratz really is building a bridge to the Black community by doing this event. And every Thursday in June, I will be here with a new special guest to talk about what we do, how we do it, and place a spotlight on the amazing people out there in our Pilates community. We brought in the conversation today. Enjoy the conversation. Awesome.
Okay.
Man, this is I like raw conversations. Okay, full disclosure, I like to jump into it like raw and not know anything about the person and just discover it as we flow. You weren't down with that.
I am not that kind of person. However, I do think this is a great idea. I just like to get the rhythm of speech. Who are you? I've never met you before. Just, you know, when you're doing things digitally, there's a connection issue. What's the rhythm of speech? How quickly, what's your pattern? You know, so there's so much I like to figure out first so I can know when to listen, when to speak. But I do think there is something that is also very dynamic about spontaneity. So I'm very much into that as well. We just call that improv. So let's do it.
Well, that's exactly it. That's why I was shocked by that, because I know, because you're the man when it comes to that improv. You got to be creative, and that's a whole separate side of the brain that I'm learning to access more. But I figured, oh, he's down. He'll be fine. And next thing you know, it's like, what are we talking about? How we do this? How we go? Where are we going? It's all good, man. It's all good.
All good.
It's all good. Right out the gate, let's just bring this right out into the open. How did we end up here on Gratz instead of the personal victory page for our core conversations?
Well, there's so much happening in the world. There's just unrest in the world right now. And I, as a Black man, I thought, what can I do to get as many voices heard? And I thought, Pilates is certainly about movement, and who do I know? And I thought, oh, let's communicate with Gratz. And so thank you to Jenny and Dana and Maureen for setting this up, because I wanted to reach out to them, and I said, how can we communicate with as many people as possible that are in the Pilates world? Who has that? Who has that connection? And immediately I thought of Gratz. And so I reached out to them, and I said, there are several people that I know who are Black men and who want to speak on behalf of the Pilates community and help people and say, this is what you can do, you know? So I immediately picked up the phone and I called Gratz, let's put it like that. And I just offered them some names, and I said, you should know this person, you should know this person, and you should know this person. Because for so long, the Pilates community has looked one way. And you don't normally see a lot of African American men in the studio. You don't normally see a lot of African Americans in your studio, period, sometimes. But that doesn't mean that we're not there. You know, I was introduced to Pilates actually not through a Pilates studio, not through anything other than dance. Most dancers do Pilates every single day, even before we knew exactly what it was. Because if you think about it, I mean, Joseph Pilates started as, he was a gymnast, you know?
Yes.
So there's no specific body type. There's no rhyme or reason. Jump in, you know, you just jump into Pilates because it's good for you. It is good for the body. It sustains the body. It is preventative of injury and tears and breaks and sprains. So it couples with dance incredibly well. So I was introduced to Pilates many years before I even entered into a dance studio and before I even knew exactly what Pilates was. And
when you did Pilates for the first time as a dancer, did you think what other athletes, what other sports would benefit from this as well? Did that cross your mind, man, these guys need this too? If this does this for me, who else would this benefit?
Well, I played sports all my life. Before I started dancing, I played sports all my life. I played tennis, I played soccer, I ran track, I played basketball, I played t-ball. I mean, you name it.
T-ball.
I mean, literally,
How's
you name it.
how's the
So,
T-ball game so far?
oh, I was the best. Okay.
Oh
I
yeah,
was
okay,
the best. Okay. Just
okay.
FYI. And I don't know if that was because my parents made me think I was the best, or I don't really know.
Right,
But
right.
in my mind, I was. Pilates provides, it enhances the level of agility and
Yes.
also mobility, how quickly you're able to move about the court, how quickly you're able to move about the field, how quickly you're able to move about the track. So it certainly is beneficial on every aspect. And I also consider Pilates, some consider it cross training as well. And I think that's simply because it's always been a high amount of women. But it's really not
Mhm.
cross training. It really is one of the most incredible pieces of training you'll ever receive. So it actually goes to all levels of sports. It goes to any sports arena. You should do it. And and God rest his soul, to Kobe Bryant, he was an advocate for Pilates. He did
Absolutely.
Pilates every week. When you think about uh, Kobe Bryant and David Beckham, there's so many men that do Pilates that you just don't know because they just don't broadcast it, because
Right.
it's a level of training. If you're a
Yes.
basketball player, you probably don't show all the levels of training that you do. You
Thank
just
you.
train,
Yes,
you just
exactly.
train. So you probably aren't showing, hey, I'm in the Pilates studio today, but they're there. So, and it
Mhm.
definitely enhanced their career, enhanced their mobility, and enhanced their agility, and most importantly, especially for dancers or any athlete, because dance is also an athlete, it is preventative. It is preventative of injury. That does not mean you won't get injured, but once you understand where your core is, what your powerhouse is, where you're initiating movement from, it's certainly easier to understand to initiate movement from your core versus your lower back, which is preventative of an injury. So I think it helps
Absolutely.
all across the board.
Pilates is almost like the secret weapon,
Oh yeah.
and when you have athletes that are really trying to get an edge on their competition, they're not going to broadcast what they're doing because they want to keep that edge,
Yes.
right? So I remember I have this soundbite of LeBron James, and he's talking about his training, and he says, in the off season they told me to stop, and I still do Pilates.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
I
yeah.
just don't stop, even when I'm supposed to be on my rest days. I still get my Pilates in.
No rest days, okay?
No rest
Okay?
days.
No rest
Yeah.
days. Well, I mean, you rest, but Pilates is something that I feel it is not, it can be a high impact if you're really just like moving about it, like especially a mat class. I don't really consider
Yep.
mat to be high impact. However, if you're doubling up on your sets and you're progressing your class quickly
And
and they've been
changing the
with you for,
pace and
yeah,
yeah,
then it
right.
can definitely move with you. However, Pilates, again, is a lifelong journey. So I don't,
Hmm.
if I had a reformer in my home, I would have done it this morning before I joined you. I
Right.
think it's
Yeah.
great. It's just great for an everyday. I've even had an adjustment before I stopped going to chiropractors.
Hmm.
I learned, I've adjusted myself doing a long stretch on a reformer.
Of course. I'm sure everyone who is watching this right now would be hand waving at the times they heard pops and clicks and cracks while
Oh
they're
yeah. Oh
making those
yeah.
moves, right? So
Wake it up.
yeah, exactly. Part of that, I think that's part of what brought me to Pilates initially too, is when I was playing football, I was probably like grade 9, grade 10, and I went to Cairo, and he's like, well, if you want your back to stop hurting, stop playing football.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, we need to think about other strategies besides taking away my favorite sport to figure this out. And so as I went on through my years and played university, I started to go to another chiro who was really good, and also went to a Pilates class.
Hmm.
And I recognized that going to chiro 3 times a week and Pilates once a week became chiro twice a week and Pilates once a week, and then chiro once a week and Pilates once a week, and then chiro every other week and Pilates twice a week. And then I
That's right.
phased out the chiro because the rehab became prehab,
That's right.
right?
That's
And
right.
then it was all through that Pilates piece. So I really appreciate the work, and like you said, it is restorative,
Oh
and we
yeah.
can train like the 7 days a week because now we can adapt our Pilates to make it a restorative piece in our training. So we're not pounding your body every day, but we can still get mobility and stability and strength on the mat or on the
Because
apparatus.
because pounding your body every day is not really helpful. Recovery is the most important thing. That is the
Yes.
most important thing. How quickly you can recover before you train again the very next day.
Right.
That is the most essential thing. But when you are on a reformer, recovery comes very quickly. It is recovery. You're allowing your body to find itself again. You know, I mean, maybe you're not doing shoulder stands. Maybe you're not doing a short spine massage. Maybe you're just doing the 100. Maybe you're doing your 100 with your knees into your chest, and maybe your head and neck and shoulders are curled up off the mat or up off of the reformer, and you're beginning to pump your arms using your lats, just engaging the lats and up and the underarms and the lats, and just focusing there. Or maybe you're on the floor on the mat and you're just doing saw and you're engaging the lats and the backs of the shoulders, and you're just learning the body and understanding the body, so that when you go back to the studio, when you go back to the stage, when you go back to the court or to whatever it is that you do, you did take a day off, but in that day off, you also recovered by understanding the body a little bit more, understanding where to initiate movement from. And it really helps. It may not be, it truly, in my opinion, is a day off. It's a day off, but it's a day off of recovery and restorative and actually understanding the body. I think we really just understand it more when you're on the reformer, when you're on the Cadillac. You know, the Cadillac will really, the reformer is my favorite, honestly. That's my absolute favorite. But I also I've found so many great things on the Cadillac, or just even a simple toe stretcher as a dancer, just stretching the toes, understanding how to stretch the toes, understanding what webbed feet will do for you in the dance studio, and how to really balance and releve. So I don't really take a day off from Pilates.
Right.
Why?
Hashtag take no days off.
No days off. Not from Pilates, no. From weights and
from weights.
From weights and things like that, absolutely. But from Pilates, just waking up and just doing a roll up. Understanding what it is to roll up, and understanding what it is to really press the legs into the mat as you roll up, and the scoop, finding that scoop, and really just being, and then that translates when you get out of bed. When you get out of bed in the morning, you roll out of bed. You roll up versus just like, you really roll up and you wake the body up. So
we as men get this, but from your perspective, what do you feel is a strategy to get more men into Pilates studios?
Well, that comes with exposure. It's up to us to expose our children. It's up to us to expose our high schools. It's up to us to expose our higher education. Getting Pilates into physical education, getting Pilates into what they call it PE. Back when I'm not telling my age, nope, but we called it PE back in the day, okay? And physical education, which is why I said people are doing Pilates before they even understand what Pilates is. If you're rolling down to touch your toes, in a sense, that's Pilates, because you have to roll back up. Okay. And so that is essentially just a rolling down, touching your toes, pressing your hips forward, and grounding sending your sits bones down as you roll back up is Pilates. So simply putting it into the school system would be a wonderful thing. Putting it into the school system, the educational system, helping people understand what Pilates is and how it strengthens the body, how it helps the body, and then getting sound and very informative instructors into the colleges, into HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, especially, so that you can begin to see more African Americans in the school. I'm a graduate of Howard University in Washington, D.C., and there is a Pilates. You do receive Pilates if you are taking any type of physical education. Pilates is a choice. It is a choice, and you can take Pilates.
It's an elective.
It is an elective, and you can. My sister works in the African American Studies department at Howard University, and she has already graduated from college many years ago, okay? And she still takes Pilates in Bird Gymnasium at Howard University. Very cool. So it's really about putting it into the school system, getting a curriculum, focusing on academia. And from there, I believe that we'll be able to translate the notion of really just understanding what Pilates just really is. And then you'll be able to see more men in the studio, because more men will understand it. And then getting it into the sports arena, which is happening now more than ever. It's even in soccer now. I mean, thanks to people like David Beckham, who's making that voice being heard. But that is the biggest way, I think, getting it into the school system, creating a curriculum, broadening academia, and putting it into the school system. That would really, that would help so much.
Sometimes we look at it like, okay, what do we do with the people in front of us? You're saying, no, let's take it back a generation. Let's set up the next generation so that we don't have to have this conversation 15 years from now, because people are still ignorant about its benefits.
Take it back. take it back to when you're a child. When you're young, if you are waking up in the morning and if you go to your mat in the morning, every morning before I even go take my morning run or any of that, I go to my mat and I start with some Pilates exercises. I just open my hips. I just stretch my shoulders. I roll up, just simple things. I flex my feet and pull my toes back to my knees. I press my legs into the mat and I roll up. And just that alone is simply enough to begin the conversation with a child. Because they're so agile anyway. They're incredibly agile. You see kids in New York, I see kids on the train with their foot, they're in their strollers, and I always laugh because they're in their strollers, but they have their foot in their mouth. And I think, oh, youth, oh, agility,
oh,
oh, youth. Look at that. You're not even warm. You're not even warm.
I know.
And that is when they need to start. From there, that's when we start. That's when we start educating children about body awareness. And then when they go to school, we continue that education. And then when they go to rehearsals or when they go to dance practice or rehearsals or basketball practice or whatever sports arena they're in, then you continue that education at a higher and more advanced and elevated and enhanced way of learning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why one of my favorite populations to work with are my basketball kids. I have these grade 7, 8s. And they get it, man. They get it. Like you walk in and say, listen, we're doing Pilates today. LeBron James does Pilates. Every one of you guys think that you're going to be LeBron James one day. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. And names like that help. Honestly, it does help to name drop in that respect. It does help. Respect. And until the conversation has broadened enough, it does help to name drop, because a lot of African American kids don't always have fathers in their home. Not every child is like that. Not every African American child is like that. But there are several that don't have fathers in their home, so they don't even see that. And so a lot of people just begin to believe that lifting weights and bulking is what is the epitome of strength. However, anyone who has lifted weights for any number of years has probably experienced some injury, and you quickly learn that the moment you stop lifting weights, you just deflate. So what happens when you lose it all? What do we focus on now? So then it becomes really about Pilates. It becomes, because then you go to rehabilitation or you go to your physical therapy and they say, are you in Pilates? And you say, no, I've never heard of it. But how about if you had heard about it? How about if you had been doing it for years? So when they put you on the reformer, you say, oh, yeah, I know, this is a jump board.
Yes.
So it starts in youth, really.
Can we just talk about, like, what do you do in terms of your theater and your dance and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. So I really don't like talking about me, but I am. Hi, guys. I'm Joshua. I do musical theater here in New York City. I'm a dancer. I'm an actor. I'm a singer. I do a lot of things, but found dance as a kid. I became introduced to the business through acting. I started with the play. I started doing Shakespeare as a kid, and then I found dance, and then I fell in love. And I knew that was what I was supposed to do. And from there, I just kind of took off, and I just engaged in just training and what it means to be a dancer. After I graduated from Howard University, I moved to New York City, and I quickly became a professional. In New York City, there really is no transition. You jump in, you sink or swim. Okay. So I quickly became a professional in New York City. And from there, I traveled abroad. And while I was abroad, I experienced a horrible injury, which I've spoken of before. And I had a horrible back injury, and I had I have a herniated disc in my lower back. And it was the most painful injury, which happened on stage, by the way. So it was incredibly painful. I was carrying a girl on my neck, and I was tumbling with her on my neck. And not anything any person should be doing 8 times a week on stage. Just FYI. Yeah. So if a choreographer tells you to tumble with someone on your neck, say no. But I did that for eight shows a week for over a year and a half, and I think my body just started to become tired, and I was injured. And I quickly just was like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? I was hurting. I was in pain. And I kept seeing my chiropractor. I kept seeing the chiropractor. I went to multiple chiropractors and multiple doctors. all to find, of course, you have a herniated disc. And I thought, well, am I going to be in this kind of pain for the rest of my life? I'm never going to be able to perform again. What can I do? And I remember I said, well, I'll just take a Pilates class. Let's see what that's about.
Yes.
Which I had already been taking Pilates, but I had not been taking Pilates on a reformer. I had been taking mat classes for years, and I'd been doing lots of that in dance. And I said, I'll try Pilates. So I started doing Pilates on the reformer. And from there, I understood immediately what Pilates can do. I understood the love language between a human being and a reformer, a human being and a Cadillac, a human being and a barrel. I understood. And I said, this is it. And I remember leaving, actually, so I want to say this to a lot of people because or whoever's listening, I want you to understand, I began reformer classes as in group classes. I don't think that's a great idea. I think when you begin Pilates on a reformer, I think that should be with a one-on-one. I think that's a private. I did not understand what it meant to tuck my tailbone in that regard on a reformer. I didn't understand what it meant to lengthen out of my hips. I didn't understand any of those things. Some of those things I understood from dance, but in terms of putting that on a reformer, I didn't understand how to sink my hips. I didn't understand how to sink the thigh bone. I didn't understand things like that. And so once I started privates, I quickly understood Pilates. I understood it. And I said, I don't need the chiropractor anymore. And I stopped going. Go to the chiropractor if you need to go to the chiropractor. If you need to go, go. This is just me, my story that I'm sharing with you. And I want you to know that chiropractors are great. They're great people. They're great. They're solid professionals, and they are here to help us. However, there are ways that are less evasive that you can use to help the body. And Pilates is one of those things. And that's why gymnasts use them, because gymnasts and dancers we're all contortionists. So what can you do to help your body with those contortions? What do you need to do? And Pilates is that. Pilates, in my opinion, it's Pilates. And so that's where I found it. And ever since then, I've been stuck like
hockey got inundated with yoga right out the gate. And all these yoga people coming into it and making people flexible.
Yeah.
And the conversation I started to have with them around it was that you don't need flexibility, you need mobility. You need strength through that range of motion. You need those joints to be stable while you move and flowing. And like there's that same notion of being contortionist when you have to reach this way for a puck and then dive this way, and then basketball is step pivot, all these different things. So we need strength through those range of motion that Pilates gives us. And I'm not knocking yoga by any means, but there's an element of strength and power from your core as we flow through these movements with full range of motion, with full strength at the end of that range of motion that's not there sometimes with yoga.
I'm a huge yoga fan. I take yoga at least 3 times a week. I prefer heated yoga. I think yoga can enhance your level of mobility for sure. I think it can enhance, or flexibility, let's say that. I think yoga will enhance your flexibility, and maybe for some people, mobility as well. But I think yoga coupled with Pilates will help you understand what a yoga pose is. I didn't understand certain yoga poses, meaning how to execute it effectively for my body, until I started taking Pilates. When you're in any yoga pose, if you're in crow pose, if you're in a bow, what are those? How do you execute that professionally and in a way that's going to help your body and enhance your body? I think that's the beauty of Pilates. It helps you with body awareness. You really understand what it means. So I think it's great for that, for sure. 100%.
Absolutely. And just reading some of the comments that are flying through here too, Brooke Seiler was just saying too much stretch can destabilize a joint.
Yeah. Yeah. Overstretching is not good. You never want to overstretch. Honestly, just going into a Pilates class and doing a mat class might give you the kind of stretch and mobility that you're looking for. If I'm doing a short spine, if I'm doing jackknife, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it. If you have a solid instructor, instructor who knows how to cue very well and who knows great bone cues, you're going to get it. If I give you a jackknife, if I cue you in a short spine right now, or a roll up, or even the 100, literally, I have stretched my hips. I have really gotten out of my hips from just doing the 100. I have literally gotten out of my hips and that's the beginning of class.
Right, I know. That's scary. Like those times when you have that really good instructor who's just sharp with their cues, and you're like, we're on exercise 1. This is gonna be a long day.
Yeah, and that's the importance of having great instructors, and I think that's why I understand Pilates in a way that I do, first of all, as a dancer and having body awareness, but I have
Yes.
really solid and sound instructors. I'm throwing this out there, bite the apple, spit out the seed. There are so many of people that are, there's so many of us that are Pilates instructors. However, what makes a great Pilates instructor is when you can effectively cue an exercise so that they get it. You know?
Yes.
And there are so many of us who are Pilates instructors, but we don't understand anatomy. We don't understand the body. We don't understand how to truly effectively cue. And it's one thing to say, roll down, touch your toes, roll back up, and 1, and 2, and 3. Okay, what are we doing here? How do we help that client or that person when you're if you're teaching a group mat class and there's 50 bodies in that room, you cannot go around and touch your body and touch every single body. That's impossible. How can you use your words through bone cues, through anatomy, to help enhance that class for someone who's paying $50 for that class?
Yes. What you're saying is 100% true. And one of the things that was mentioned on a past core conversation, which I love, was being able, as a great teacher, to be able to recognize the type of learners you have in your room.
Quickly.
So quickly is the key word, because yes, I need bone cues, I need verbal cues, I need tactile cues, I need all these cues. But the very first thing to recognize is what kind of learners do I have so I can communicate in the way that they're going to hear it, not the way that I want to present it.
That's right. How can you hear me? And that's also, I mean, that goes
How can
with
you
anything.
hear me? Yes.
That goes with anything. Yesterday, I made a post about listening. Listening is such a love language that's so underrated. It is really a love language that is underrated. Listening, really understanding and listening to what the instructor is saying to you. And that is another level of Pilates that works the brain, which is why I love Pilates, because I can really give you a full workout here. I'm working your brain, I'm working your body, I'm working the way you think, I'm changing how quickly you think, I'm bringing in repetition, I'm advancing you, I'm enhancing you, and I'm elevating your level of thinking as quickly as possible, and so that you can shift gears. So listening is a great thing, and it's also about giving cues that make sense to the client. If I'm telling you something that doesn't make sense, first of all, if I'm giving you a jackknife and you can't do rolling like a ball, then that's my fault.
We don't go there. Yeah, that's a separate conversation.
Then I don't need to be doing what I'm doing. I don't need to be here. I don't need to be teaching. I don't need to be instructing anyone. I need to be taking class, honey. Okay. So there is that. That's already that. Okay. There is a level of understanding, which is why I believe put it in your body first. I don't think, for me, being a solid instructor requires body. Take in the information. Take in the information into your body. You don't understand what a roll-up is until you've done it. You don't understand what a push-through is on the Cadillac until you've done it. You don't understand what a long stretch is until you've done it. It has to be in our body first. Put it in your body. Right. And then once you put it in your body, you're in a better place to make that cue more relatable to a child, to a to an athlete, to someone who is, pregnant. Like how do you cue someone who's pregnant? Right. What do you do? And that's essential. So you have to put it in your body. You have to understand what it means. I can't cue a pregnant woman to do this. Right. So it's really great. And you don't need anatomy to do that. You just need to put it in your body first.
Can you mix yoga and Pilates? And my answer to that is yes, but when you're doing Pilates and then you start going to yoga exercises, please let people know when they're leaving Pilates land and they're moving into yoga land. Because what happens is we go into a class and then we mix in our yoga exercises and we flow through yoga and then Pilates and back and forth. And then people think that they've done a Pilates class when you've just done yoga exercises for the last 45 minutes.
Well, I think that's also up to the studios. I think that's, again, going back to the Pilates Method Alliance. Let's just go back there. Let's just go to the PMA. I think the Pilates Method Alliance has helped so many instructors and so many studios understand the difference between Pilates and yoga. First of all, classical Pilates and Pilates fusion. Those are two different things, Right. So just starting there, understanding the difference between classical Pilates, Pilates fusion, and yoga is a great start. And I think that's up to the instructors. I think instructors we have to go back to ground zero. We have to go back and understand what is classical Pilates, what is Pilates fusion, what is yoga, and understanding that if you're doing a downward dog in a classical Pilates class, where are you? You know,
Right.
where are you? Where has that
Right.
instructor been before? So I think it's
Right.
really up to studios as well to make that distinction about what kind of class you're going into.
Hmm.
I do think you can. I do Pilates and yoga, but I'm very clear on the difference. I think be
Right.
very clear on
It's
the
the
difference. I think,
communication around it.
yeah, I
It's
always encourage
it's
people to
all the
start.
communication.
Yeah, I encourage people to start taking one at a time. Don't do
Hmm.
both at the same time until you clearly understand the difference. Once you've been in yoga for 2 months or 3 months and you understand what that is, then go to Pilates or vice versa, whichever you choose. I don't think it's up to
Right.
me to tell you what to choose. I think it's up to you, your body. But I do believe taking one at a time until you are sound, until you are
Yes.
astute, until you have a knowledge of body awareness and you understand the difference between a crow pose and I don't know when you're on the reformer, because there are, you know, some shapes are similar, you know,
It's influenced by it.
some
Like, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, of
yeah.
course. I mean, like, Pilates definitely is influenced by Joseph Pilates looking at yoga and other sciences. Like, no question.
I just think we have to go back in the Pilates community. I mean, this is just a Joshua thing. So let's not take this out of context. This is a
Okay.
Joshua thing. Joshua is I like to make the distinction when you're teaching classical Pilates or when you're teaching a Pilates fusion. Because if
Right.
you have a lower back injury, if you have a herniated disc and you go into a Pilates studio and they're giving you Pilates fusion and they're mixing yoga with that, and you don't understand how to press your hips forward before you go into some pose that or some
Hmm.
Pilates exercise that they fused with something else, then you risk
Right.
injury. And then
Absolutely.
you walk away with a misconception of Pilates. Oh my gosh,
Of
Pilates, which is
Pilates.
what you hear so many times. Oh, it hurts. It's so
Yes.
painful. It's like a torture museum in there. It's just like torture machines. That's because you didn't have good teachers. You know,
Right.
you didn't have anyone to make that distinction. So I think
Right.
we have to start making distinctions before people come into our classrooms. Make the
Yes.
distinction of what you're coming into and make people
Yes.
aware what the difference is between classical Pilates and Pilates fusion and yoga. And it's up to the studios to not be after the dollar, because it's not
Hmm.
about the dollar here. We are
Come
not
on
after the
now.
dollar, because so many studios are saying, well, just fuse the class. Just get them in here. Just get them in here. We
Just
need
get
the
them in
money.
there.
We need to pay
Just
the
fill the
rent.
room.
Get them in here. Fill the room. Fill the room. And then you walk into a studio and you're teaching 50 people in a room, and half of them have never taken Pilates, half of them never taken yoga, and they don't know what it is to even roll down and touch their toes. And quite frankly, they are not
Yes.
able to. So
Right.
then it's up to me as a teacher or as an instructor to really, now I have to focus on anatomy, which is why I'm saying you
Hmm.
don't have to have anatomy or a solid understanding to teach it. But now at this point, I have to understand anatomy, because that is the only cue I'm going to be able to give you that makes sense.
Yes.
And even then, some people
Hmm.
still won't know, because I've worked with people and I say, touch your hamstrings, and have no idea where that is. Okay, great. So how can
Right.
I help you figure that out in a room
Right.
of 50
Right.
people? So it's
In
up
9 seconds, so we can keep
in
the
nine
class moving.
seconds because I've got to keep it moving, because there's three
Right.
people on the front row who've been here for 6 weeks and they understand what it is to do a roll up,
Let's
and they
go.
don't want to
Right.
waste their
Yeah.
money. So let's go.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we have to
Yeah.
work, and we have to work in we have to be smart. And I think it's if there's any studio owners listening, I implore you, please make it clear. There is a distinction, so that when people come in, they don't leave with a misconception of what Pilates is,
Hmm.
because we don't want that. We want people to be very clear
That's
that
correct.
Pilates is helpful and not harmful.
Someone wrote back a few comments back. Preach.
Ah.
Pre- You hit it, man. Like, you're hitting it. That's exactly it. And you know, one of the things I love about this time, this quarantine time, when everyone is just in their space and people are trying to connect and we're having beautiful conversations like this, is what gets dissolved in the middle of this is the conversation between classical and contemporary Pilates.
Yeah.
People are not like on one camp and fighting and this and that and just like hating on the other. We have Pilates. We have
That's
movement.
right.
We have just a joy of movement, which brings us together in it. And I love that. I absolutely
Because
love that.
it's all movement anyway. You just have to make
Right.
the distinction of what a person is coming into, so they are very aware. But either way, you're going
Yes.
to be moving. So let's
Right.
just enjoy the movement. Pilates fusion and classical Pilates, pick your poison. They're both great.
Right. Yes.
Whatever one works for you. Just be clear
Yes.
what you're going into, so your body is
Yes.
aware first.
When I drop the phrase real men do Pilates, hashtag real men do Pilates, what does that mean to you?
Well, you know, let's just be very clear about this. I am a Black gay man, so I don't relate to real men because I have always been told that, I grew up in the South and they always say, oh, real men don't, listen, I understand the phrase, so I will go there. I understand. I truly understand. But I also believe that men, when you say real men do Pilates, I think what you mean is men who are enlightened and men who are aware of their bodies and men who are not afraid and are uninhibited. And so from there, I think you can really begin to break down what that means, because for so long, the Pilates world and the Pilates community has been, for a while, it was middle-aged Caucasian women. And that's what the studios were. That's what they looked like. Even in dance studios, that's what they looked like. And so a lot of men were just not into that. They were thinking, my wife does that. This is not for me. I don't want to do Pilates. My wife does that. I'm not doing that. I mean, I'm not doing that. I'm not throwing my legs over my head. I am a man. I don't do that, and then the good thing about Pilates was Pilates began to translate to the younger generation. And then you started to see all the aloe tights and all the Lululemon coming into the Pilates studio and all the cute little girls who are in their 20s and in their 30s. And then the young men at the gym started saying, oh, well, maybe I should take a Pilates class. Yo, you see that girl in there?
Class.
Yo, you see her over there? I'm about to go in that Pilates. And then from there, people started saying, I'm going to Pilates. And that just got them in the room. Listen, men are creatures of sight. Leave it at that. Whatever. And whatever gets you in the room, honey, got you in the room. Okay? And now it's up to me to make you stay. So, I think what's happened is men started to see themselves reflected in Pilates studios. And they started to see that it's a safe space to explore for men and women. And I also want to add trans as well, because I've worked with a lot of trans, I don't want to say clients, I just want to say people, whatever. And it is now becoming a safe space for the trans community, which is lovely, because they're starting to see themselves reflected in the Pilates studios and in the community. So when I hear the phrase or the hashtag real men do Pilates, I think it's just really simply men who are enlightened and men who are aware and men who are uninhibited. And I think that's what it is, because now it's a new generation. It's a new generation now. When I was younger, hey, claps, honey. When I was younger, I mean, men were a lot more apprehensive. But now, there is a generation that is uprising. As you see the protests and the marches in the streets, we are a different generation. Millennials are different. Millennials don't need your permission to do anything. They take it, okay? That's what it is. Millennials go in and they rock it out. And they don't ask questions. They apologize later, okay? And that's just what it is. So millennials don't need it anymore. You don't really have to coach them to come into the studio.
No, we don't need to strategize them.
You don't need to do that. No. You don't have to strategize how to get millennials in the studio. They want to be in the studio. And that's what you want. That's what you want. Because, again, that goes back to starting in early education. Education from elementary school to middle school, because millennials have changed the game, okay? They don't need coaching to come in the studio. They want to be in the studio, and they will call you out if your class is bad, because they will take to social media and let everyone know. So it is really a good thing, and it's making all of us
it's calling us accountable.
Rise up. Rise to the occasion, because they're coming in here, and as quickly as they leave your class, listen, there's a Pilates studio in every corner in New York City. All they have to do is go out the door and make a left or right, and it's a Pilates studio there or there. So there is always another option. So it's making us rise up and become better and learn how to teach you and learn how to teach you and how to instruct you and how to instruct you. And then also Real Men Do Pilates, understanding what kind of men you have in your room. What kind of men do you have in your room? Do you have athletes in your room? And again, going back to what you said, how quickly can you address who's in your room? I can see who's in the room before you come in. I know what you do when you walk in the door. You're an athlete. I can tell. You also carry your bag on your left side because your left shoulder's down. You walk with your hips forward, so rolling up and pressing your hips forward will be easy for you. So I'll put you on the front so I can do roll up and have everybody look at you. You have to be able to listen.
Boom.
Go with it. Go with it. But millennials they're not wasting any time. So we don't need Real Men Do Pilates. Hashtag millennials do Pilates.
Yeah, right. And I think that's the point I'm making with that, and you articulated that beautifully, because there is a generation that doesn't need permission to do what they want, feel what they
No.
want, and think. However, there is a generation that still needs to be challenged.
Yeah.
Sad to say, there's a generation that needs to hear you say that, hear me say that, to give them permission to darken the door to a Pilates studio.
Well, speak up. That comes with speaking up. When someone, every day, someone asks me, am I a trainer? Or are you a dancer? Are you a runner? Are you something? They know that I'm some type of athlete. Speak up. Use your mouth. Use your words. Yes, I do Pilates. This is your chance. Not only is it an opportunity for you to possibly gain a new client, but it's also an opportunity for you to broaden the conversation. Yes, I do Pilates. I do Pilates 3 times a week. Here's my here's my instructor. Here's the studio I go to. I do Pilates 4 times a week. I do Pilates every day. I love Pilates so much. Instead of buying this, I bought a reformer. Some people buy this bikes. I bought this bike. I bought a reformer. And you know, shout out to Gratz. If you need a reformer, listen, you're on the right page, honey. Okay.
Yes.
So, you know,
there's your plug.
And I have to say, there's something about a Gratz reformer that I love. There is a rhythm. It is so smooth. I mean, literally, it is the smooth. I've done a lot of different reformers. Okay. And I love the Gratz equipment. It is just very smooth. It moves with you when you press your feet into the foot bar, just doing the footwork and the toes and the arches and the heels and the tendons. It moves with you. It helps you and enhances you. So I have to say, if you're looking for Gratz, if you're looking for a reformer, call Gratz.
Yes, there you go. And you know what I love about that, and with the equipment, is when you get guys on it, when you get like people who just like doing their bench press and their squats and stuff, they come into the room, they step onto equipment, or they do a mat class or whatever it is. It's intuitive. It makes sense to their body. Did you at any point take a challenge of like stopping lifting weights altogether and trying just to do Pilates exclusively for a season?
I did, actually. I did.
Okay.
I just focused on Pilates, and I just stayed on that reformer. I stayed with the coach, and that's how I truly understood the difference. And so when I went back to lifting weights, I understood what it was to do a deadlift, and I understand it better even today. And I can really work with trainers at the studio and say, let me help you with that deadlift. And they love it, because then they're able to really cue their clients better, because that's Pilates. That's really what it is.
Yeah, and actually, that's one of the things too. Coming from the personal training world and then learning Pilates, I learned this, not only new exercises for my toolbox, but a new vocabulary. And my cues were sharper. Like, just my eye was sharper. Like, I brought so much back to the fitness, to the personal training world, having Pilates in my hip pocket as another skill set. Crazy. Like, it just makes such a difference.
It's so great, and I encourage all Pilates instructors, work with the trainers that are close to you, because you will quickly learn that when you say tuck your tailbone, they're going to look at you like you're crazy.
Right.
They don't. There are a lot of trainers who do understand that, and there's a lot of trainers who don't. There's a lot of trainers who are very aware what that means, and they're going to be like, absolutely, I got it. And there are going to be trainers who are going to be like, I don't know what that means. And there are going to be trainers who don't know half of what you're saying. And it's great to work with them, because how do you communicate effectively to a trainer? How do you communicate effectively to someone who's only lifted weights? How do you help them understand the benefits of Pilates? So I think working with trainers, it's great. And it's not just great for them, it's great for me. It's so great for me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so great for me. I learn so much when I work with trainers. I love working with people who've never done Pilates before. It's like the best. When I work with people who've never done Pilates, it's like, okay, I got it. It's like so much I want to do, and I have to think about. I mean, I've mapped out my class and what I'm going to do with you for this 60 minutes. I give you 55 because I need 5 before the next client. Thank you. I give you 55. I've already mapped out what I'm going to do in these 55 minutes, and I've got like 20 exercises that I want to do. And so I think it's important, because it helps you think quickly. Going back to thinking off the cusp, it helps me think quickly how I can help you. When I go back and go with that trainer again, they're going to love the class that I gave them. And guess what? We can share. We can refer clients. Hi, are you looking for a trainer?
Yes.
I just trained him. He's great. And it's great to have them in the
Right.
studio, but they're focused on the longevity of their careers as well.
Yes.
And Pilates will certainly provide you with longevity. I mean, when I think of the ballet world, I mean, I listen to Misty Copeland. And if you've not, listen, here's another plug. Download Masterclass, okay? There's a Masterclass app that's out there right now. Download it. Misty Copeland is phenomenal ballerina, and she talks about the importance of Pilates and how it saved her career. And how it saved her career. And it taught her, not just her, me too, it taught her how to warm up. And she has a great piece on her masterclass. She talks about how she used to just warm up for so long. And she quickly realized, I don't need to warm up that long. I need to warm up my powerhouse. And from my powerhouse, all things flow. So download Masterclass if you need to hear it from a ballerina's perspective.
Man, we need to be like sponsored by like, we're just like hitting all these sponsors. We need like stickers all over the screen and stuff. We're like,
it's true. It's so true. It's so true. And I want to say this really fast because I think we may be drawing near, but I want to say this really fast. With so much happening in the world, I reached out to Gratz and I said, I want to do this. And they said, who do you know? And I said, I know Martin. I know so many people. I'll begin with Martin because I knew Martin was already doing the work of beginning these conversations. And so I said, let me reach out to Martin. And so what I really want to implore so many people to do, if you know any African American studio owners, if you know any African American instructors, go there. Send people to them. Get them involved in the conversation because it is going to enhance the Pilates community. It's going to enhance the Pilates community. We're broadening. This is about broadening the conversation. And so from there, if we get more African Americans in the Pilates studio, then we get more people of color and then we Latinos. Then we have Latinos in the Pilates community. And then from there, we have it just keeps going. And then you have the trans community in the Pilates studio. It's great for business. It's great for us. It's great for word of mouth. It's great. And so it's about broadening the conversation. I don't want people to think that Pilates is just, and I hate to say this, please don't take it. Pilates is not a white woman's world. Pilates is for all. Pilates began with Joseph, and he was a gymnast, honey. Okay. I don't know what else do you need to hear about it. He was a gymnast. Okay. He was a gymnast, and he was a very sickly kid. He was very sick, and he experienced a lot of, he was a sickly kid, and he was a gymnast. And so just from there, just literally. So
he was a gymnast?
He was a gymnast. How many times can I say it? Because I want people to really understand what Pilates is. Pilates is for everyone. It is a healing tool because as a person who has a herniated disc in their back and wasn't sure if they'd ever perform again. And to this day, I'm stronger than I was before with a herniated disc. Pilates is where it's at, honey. Get in there and open your studios. When you see African Americans in the gym and you see black guys in there that have these bodies and, whatever, or if they don't, get them in your studio. Because they're going to bring business. They're going to bring business because word of mouth travels. And with social media, that's what you want.
Yeah, they're your ambassadors.
Yeah, get them in your studio. And I love that we're having this conversation and that we had it because I really wanted to, there's so much happening in the world and there's so much unrest in the world. And I'm like, how can we come together? What do we have in common? What do we have in common? Our bodies. We have movement. We have movement. We all move. We move our bodies. If you walk down the street to the train, to your car, to your garage, you're moving your body. And I thought, oh my gosh. Gratz, hello, it's Pilates. Yay!
Yes. Yeah. We have a powerful language, a powerful vehicle to send this message through our passion for Pilates, our passion for movement, and this platform here. Thank you to Gratz Awesome for this opportunity. Josh, you are an amazing spokesperson and ambassador, man. You're living it. That's what I love the most about it. You're not just like sitting here and talking about it, but not even practicing it. You're walking the talk. You are a real man doing Pilates.
And thank you again. I know you just said it, but I want to say it one more time. Thank you to Gratz, because when I reached out to them about this, I really was so happy to be the liaison for so many other people to come on this platform, because I really want Pilates I want everyone to understand it is for everyone. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm so happy that whoever tuned in, I'm grateful you're here, but now do the work, spread the word. That's it.
Good stuff. All right, I'm going to sign you off here. Thank you so much for today,
Thank you so much.
and we're good.
And I
All
don't
right,
know how to
thank you,
log off, so it's
everybody.
up to you.
Yeah, got it, man. All
Thank
right,
you.
talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Core Conversation today. I encourage you to check out our website at personalvictory.ca/core conversations to keep the conversation going. We have our forum where we can talk about different issues. You can highlight any teacher trainings that you have. You can ask questions of our guests, and you can just find out who is coming up next. So join us there, and thanks again for listening to Core Conversations.